Okay. So that means that for the past hour or so, I have been talking to thin air. I don't really know. I am not tech savvy at all. I am so bad at anything to do with technology. And I guess since I'm not using my phone as a camera for myself, that was the audio that I used last time too. So I thought that I did it right, but I was not. Alright. Now, though, I am recording audio, apparently. So, going back to what I was doing earlier, so far, this is all I've got. Um, I did her hair. I messed up and forgot to do her ears, so I erased part of her hair, and did her ears. I talked a lot about the character. I talked a lot about the show. No, you don't. It's not your fault that I didn't know that there was a problem with my audio. That is on me and my lack of technological knowledge. But yeah, so I'm probably just gonna end up cutting the first part of this video, or just trying to like. I'm just gonna cut the first part of this video when I do actual editing. Nobody's been here yet. You're the first person on the stream. So, yeah. Um, right now I'm about to start working on her tails. So, to do the tails, I probably would want to do a smaller brush. Because I don't want to make it too, like, furry or anything, but at the same time I am trying to capture the spirit of just like cowhide, and since they have a very thin amount of hair. Actually, before I do that, I think I'm going to try to shape this tail out a little bit better to make sure that I have a good shape for the tail. So probably what I'll do, so try to do something maybe a little bit bigger than this, and I will kind of just line the tail out nice and smooth. So I'll probably do one of these tools, just because that makes it easier for me to get nice, beautiful, curved lines. And then I'll start here. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Actually, I don't like that one. I'm going to do this again. But yeah, I originally, when I started this out, I was talking about your comic and how I really like it so far. And it's really creative and cute and sweet and all that sort of thing. And I was saying that some of my favorite characters out of at least the main five are Cowboy and Milkshake. They're probably my two favorites. They're just who I like the most. And I'm not doing this on a good new layer. I also went into the fact that I am still very much a novice when it comes to drawing. So, I'm not very good at it. I don't always use probably the best tools that I could use. I don't always know the quickest or most efficient way to do something. I kind of just taught myself, so I kind of just do whatever I end up figuring out how to do. I think that's a pretty good base for the tail. Maybe I'll thin this out a little bit. Alright. Now I'm going to contract it by 1 pixel and delete. And that'll give me just a good starting point that I can add a little more detailing onto this. And I don't want to make it too detailed, because the thing about cowhide, and I know that these creatures are not cows. That's not what I'm trying to say. But the thing about cowhide is that the hair is so fine and so thin that you almost don't even know that it exists. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm going to remove this line. I'm going to make this a little bit thinner so that I can make sure that I have good lines going on here. Blank version of the brush I used to do speech bubbles for the tails before I started hand drawing them. The more you practice, the more you get better. That is so true. And that's a really good little shortcut there. It's doing speech bubble things. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know. This isn't really looking like hair. It's just looking like a badly drawn line. Maybe this will work. Because I don't want it to look like fur, but I definitely want it to look a little bit, I don't know, like hair. Maybe it's, since this is the base of the tail, I'll make it a little more obvious, especially because since Cupcake is like the smallest character, taking the characters creatively is really interesting. Yeah, it's funny you're taking inspiration from cows because of the jokes around Milkshake. Yeah, well, I mean, like, she looks like a cow. She looks like a really cool alien cow. And her name is Milkshake, and he's a cowboy. So, yeah, it feels just natural to take inspiration from cows. And that's kind of why, I know I already showed you the rough sketch for what I'm going to do later for the whole thing. That's why I had given them the, like, cloven hooves that I gave them, was because at first I didn't notice the detailing that you did, where they have, like, 3 distinct, like, I don't know the right terminology for the cloven hooves. They have, like, 3 distinct, like, sort of toe things, and I hadn't noticed that at first, so I just gave them the 1 clove down the middle, because that's what cows have. And then I was looking at it later, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to make sure that I do the 3 instead, because that's just what you did. And even though this is taking it in a more detailed way, because it's my own art style, which is a little more detailed, I still want to keep the spirit of the way that you drew them, the way you intended. So that's one thing I'm going to do. So I know when you looked at the rough sketch, you were like, they kind of look like satyrs, and that's really cool. But I'm not going to make them look as fur covered as I did in the rough sketch. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. And I'm going to ignore that. Mark just spam. I think you did a really good job. Thank you. I mainly did the fur as noticeable as I did so that I would remember to do it that way. I would remember to add a bit of a fur element to it. But I'm going to make it a little bit less noticeable when I'm actually doing the line work for those characters. Right now it is just a whole lot of making small little lines and that sort of thing because I'm trying to make it detailed. And here we come to the first split. Part of the reason why I'm starting with Cupcake when she's one of the background characters, she's so small in the art piece, is so that I can try to get down a little bit of the way to draw these creatures, so that when I start doing Butterscotch and Milkshake, when they're a little bit bigger, I'll be able to already have a bit of a process in place. Let's see, I don't think I need to add too much detail onto the ends here because it is going to be kind of just taken over by the hair at the end of the tail. So I really like it when people take creative liberties with fantasy and sci-fi species. You're more cow satyr-like inspiration, and Eve's little mouth hairs where the tongue comes out are really fun. I'm not entirely sure what the second half of that sentence means. I'm sorry. Eve's little mouth hairs where the tongue comes out. I'm not sure what that is talking about. I mean, I probably just forgot something because I am a very forgetful person. It's referring to, oh, Daywalker's fan characters. Okay. Yeah. I have not tried to draw them yet, so. And how she draws Dulcines. Right, okay. That makes sense. I don't know if I've actually seen her interpretation of it yet. I'm sure she's posted it somewhere, but I just haven't noticed it myself. Also, I did forget that Daywalker was Eve. I'm so bad at names. Just any name for anything. I'm terrible at remembering anybody's name. And that is something I try to work on as much as I can. So start drawing the tails here. I want to start at the end because I want it to be like nice and fluffy. I think we've all been there. Yep. Not really sure how I like that. Okay, I'm gonna start from this side. I think that looks like actually a pretty good line there. A lot of the early stages of me doing something are just trying things, erasing things, trying things again, erasing things again. You know what? I don't really think I sorry. I don't really think I like what I'm doing here with this. I'm going to start over from this line. I want it to be a little bit thinner, but at the same time, still pretty. I sometimes wonder if I should have made Cupcake's tail curly like her hair. That would have been cool, I think. I hadn't thought of that. Maybe I'll try to add a little bit of curl myself. As just part of my, like, interpretation. I also think that I don't need to make the end of the tail as pronounced as it is. Like, actually, you know what? Maybe I will try to make it a little bit curlier. This is looking a bit more like a feather anyway. I don't need it to look like a feather. I'm not sure. This is also why it takes me so long to draw anything at all, is because I do spend so much time undoing and redoing and starting things over and making little adjustments and all that sort of thing. Like, I actually just finished, I know that you know this already, that I'm making a webcomic myself. I just finished page 1 last night, and you know that I've been working on that for the better part of a month. And I finally have page 1 completed. That looks more like fire. I'm not doing this very well. Okay, that actually looks okay. I think I'll leave that line there. That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, page 1 of my comic is way more detailed about the webcomic page. Yes, thank you. Page 1 is way more detailed than most of it because I really went hard on an establishing shot of like some cool sort of space thing that I have going on. Not space as in like sci-fi space travel, but just kind of like a bit more of a it's hard to explain, a bit more of like a supernatural element that has a bit of a spacey kind of feel. I'm liking this. I'm thinking this is looking okay. So now I'm gonna make that a little bit. Oh, I'm drawing it right over the tail. I always mess up the layers. Aesthetic? Yeah, a bit of a space aesthetic for one element of it. One of my main characters, she's from an area that's a bit spacey. She's like in this sort of pocket dimension of things that are a little bit more like kind of just a little bit space looking. But oh yeah, I like how this tail is turning out. Thank you. I am also enjoying it actually. And I'm really enjoying this challenge of like drawing your characters in my style. The void. Yeah, that's a good example. That's a good word for it. She's in this sort of like spacey type void with a lot of like clocks and gears and things. It's turning out pretty cool if I do say so myself. Alright, so going back here, I might kind of see about erasing some of this because I think that looks okay. And like I said, she's very small, this character, in this grand scheme of things. I don't really like this line. I'm going to try to redo this line. Make it a little bit thinner. Maybe add just a little bit of detail in here. Make it look a little furrier. Also, since she is, her hair is mostly black, I've been drawing your side of the art trade too, and it's been neat to try to translate your characters into my style, right? It's just so fun. It's a fun challenge. It's getting to, it's helping me just like learn a little bit more Like, even though I'm not trying to emulate your style, I'm not like copying your techniques or anything, just trying to translate your art into my style is just, it's fun. It's giving me a nice little bit of a challenge. It's letting me learn things. Like maybe how to draw tails for an alien species like this. It's gotten kind of big. I feel like this tail would run into it a little bit, and I don't want that. So I might redo this line here for the tail. Maybe I'll start it a little bit lower and make it go a little bit farther out. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And that way it's just not going to be too run into the other tail so much. Okay. So now I will start putting hair on this tail. I'll try to make this one a little bit curlier too, just to give it that little bit of cupcake charm. Wow, that one actually turned out a lot better, a lot faster. Like, it's actually so nice that it makes me kind of want to redo the first one. Indeed. Yeah. That's another one of my problems, is that I'll spend a long time trying to figure something out, and then I'll be like, oh, well, you know, that's good enough. And then I'll go work on something else, and it's like I'll have a bit of a breakthrough. And so then I will want to redo the first one because... There we go. Then I'll want to redo the first one because I've figured something out. I'm doing something a little better this time. It's just funny how that works out. I'm going to go down a little bit. 1.5 brush. That might be some good sizing for a little bit of this detailing. Perfect is the enemy of good. It is indeed. But at the same time, good and perfect is so pretty. So, yeah. I'm only planning on doing Cupcake and Cowboy today. So I think I do have time to devote to kind of fixing this one, at least a little bit. So I won't restart the entire tail. I have to merge it all down so that I can erase what I want to. I won't restart the entire tail, but I think I will kind of just clean up some of these details here and make it a little bit nicer. All right. I think I don't need this line. Okay, so just gonna fix that up there. Maybe I'll give it a bit of a... I would love to hear your commentary on the characters while you're working on them. Yeah, okay. So, one of the things is that I totally was commentating on the characters when I first started, and then obviously I didn't get any of that in audio. So I'm going to start over and commentate on the characters. So, one thing I had said about Cupcake specifically is I was talking about how she just exudes like grace and elegance. She is such a graceful character that I wanted to make sure to capture that when I drew her. This is not working out. I wanted to make sure to capture her grace and elegance in drawing her, because that was such an integral part of her character for me. And then I mentioned her eyes, how her silver eyes and everything. I'm not silver, emerald. Her emerald eyes are a big part of her character and backstory. So it was important to me when I was doing the eyes. She's so small in this drawing, so I couldn't go into a whole lot of detail, but I still wanted to make sure to keep her expression. And I also was talking about with a character without any mouth or nose, the eyes are just like 3 times more important. But I didn't detail this other than just drawing the simple line for the emerald, because I'm going to do a lot of that detailing in the coloring. Because with like gemstones and everything, if you do too much line work, then it just doesn't have the same kind of like gleam and sparkle that it's supposed to have. So I'm going to save a lot of the details for the emerald when I'm doing the coloring itself. So that was one of the big things that I had talked about with Cupcake. I like Cupcake as a character, but so far for me, she has not been she hasn't gripped me as much as like Cowboy and Milkshake. I love Cowboy and Milkshake so much, and Danny and Butterscotch, I love them. Good day, Sunday. I didn't mean to make that rhyme. Nice to have you join us. So for Cupcake, I'm definitely looking forward to getting to know her a little more. I think that's just part of it, is that I haven't really got to know Cupcake very well yet, just because she's kind of the newest member of the cast. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about her as the series progresses. I do really like her though. She's a very well designed character. And like I said, I really just do love how elegant she is and how refined she is. So when I put her in this drawing, I of course I was like, yeah, it's zero gravity, but at the same time, she absolutely needs to be just so calm and collected and not at all fazed by what's going on. So yeah, I think that's turning out pretty well for her. I think that looks like a pretty good tail. So now I'm going to move on to her pants. And I talked about one thing that I love about her is the way that you've styled her. It's definitely going for an elegant but for horrifying reasons. Yep, you succeeded. Her backstory is very interesting, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it. I'm glad you made the time for this sketch. When I first saw it, I loved the posing and weightlessness you went with. Thank you, Daywalker. I just merged your name with Do Whatever. I said Day Whatever. This is what I'm talking about. I am so bad with any name. Anybody tells me any name, I'm going to get it wrong. But yeah, so I was talking about, I love the styling you went with when she joins the others, and she's wearing this like old Star Trooper uniform, but with, like without the belt and without the gloves. And I really loved how where's her pictures? I really loved how her sleeves sort of blend in with the we have the same initials. Yep. Her sleeves really blend in with the color of her arms, and so it makes it look like she's just got this like tank top jumpsuit on, which I think is just so cool. I love a good jumpsuit, and I love a good tank top. And so I I just love the way it looks like that's what she's wearing, even though at the same time it's not. She's got the sleeve on. Because she's not necessarily choosing yet what she gets to wear. It's just because this is what was available. This is what she had that she could put on. So as her style develops more, once she starts getting being able to choose what she wants to wear more, I'm very interested in just learning, what she likes to wear, what kinds of things she prefers. It's just very fun for me, and I really like it. And I do like this character a lot. So yeah, I'm working on that. Now I'm going to try to do these pants. Probably before I start trying to actually do this waist, because I'm not very skilled at all these different kinds of posings yet. So like with this piece, I'm not only learning how to draw the characters. I love the way the line art is turning out. Have fun. Thank you. What was I saying? Oh yeah, not only am I learning how to draw characters that have like these two ears, these two tails, these interesting, highly anticipated cupcake self-actualization arc, yeah. I'm learning how to draw all these interesting different like alien elements of like their bodies, but at the same time I'm also learning how to pose. And so together it's making it a little bit difficult to try to figure out exactly how to draw everything. So yeah, that is definitely, maybe I'll start over here where the bend of the knee is. And that'll make it a little easier for me to just pick this up. Contrasted against her hair, when I was drawing her hair and like her tail and everything, I was allowing myself to make a little bit more mistakes because those are going to be colored in black, which is a lot easier to disguise little mistakes in. It's easier for me to disguise mistakes if the character is colored in, heavy blacks and dark colors like that. But the Star Trooper uniform is white, so that means every little wrinkle, every little detail is going to show up a lot better, which means that I have to make sure to get it right, or else it's not going to look good for me, and I'm going to be like, I need that to be better, and it'll mess with my need for perfectionism. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't fall into that too much, though. I definitely don't want to be stuck on one character for so long that I just don't do anything because I'm too busy trying to make it perfect. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm glad it makes sense. I'm not very good at keeping up a conversation. I'm also trying not to get too caught up in details because the character is smaller and in the background, so if I get too caught up in all the little details, that's just going to be a waste of time because no one's going to see them. So I'm trying to remember that as I'm working on this. I tend to go overly detailed with a lot of my clothing designs anyway. I love drawing clothes. I don't know what it is. All of the wrinkles, all of the little details that make it feel like clothes. I just love drawing them. I'm not sure if this is a good line, though. That's not good. That looks terrible. So let's see here. I'm trying to remember the exact posing that I had done for this. So this is another bended knee. So maybe I should go up like that. Kind of go like that a little bit. See if that looks better. That's why I try to keep my style and designs simple. It's very helpful for getting art done in a reasonable time. That is true. That is a lot of stuff that I've heard. I also tried to keep my art simple, but then at the same time, I just get so caught up in all these fun little details. And I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with being the type of person that can only do, 1 page a week and, 2.5 chapters per month. I'm okay with that just because that's my style. I have mixed feelings with drawing clothes. I like drawing them, but I don't feel like I'm getting certain details right. And you know, that's always a risk with things like that. I mean, not risk. That's just something that you learn with practice. I've been drawing clothes and everything for a very long time. I think part of it for me was that one of my favorite uh, one of my favorite video games when I was a younger person was The World Ends With You, which is so stylized as far as clothes. Sorry about not doing anything for a second. My leg was falling asleep. I needed to stretch it out. The World Ends With You was such a stylized video game, and the clothing in it is just so detailed, so full of little like wrinkles and folds and all that sort of thing. That's not looking right. And so when I was first learning how to draw, I was kind of emulating that a little more, because you know, everybody starts by emulating something before they start developing their own style. And so for me, it was The World Ends With You, and that made it so that I think I pretty early on got a good grasp of, you know, clothing and pants and jacket wrinkles and that sort of thing, sleeves. So it's just, since that was where I got my start drawing that sort of thing, it made it a lot easier for me to start just learning how to draw clothes. When I actually stopped copying things and started making original projects, I was able to carry over some of the little skills and little details I had picked up from trying to draw TWEWY things, which is The World Ends With You's abbreviation. It's TWEWY. Going back to the arm here, once again, like with the tail, I'm trying very hard not to make it too fuzzy, too furry, but also to just give it that little bit of detail, like cowhide. Because with cows, they have hair. It's just so fine that it's sometimes hard to make out that it's hair. So that's one thing that I was doing with that. I spent my entire teenhood stealing parts of other people's styles that I liked, and I credit that for how my art style turned out. That's kind of how it is for everybody. Everybody starts out by saying, oh, wow, that thing looks really cool. I wonder if I could do something like that. And then finding out that maybe you can. And then once you've learned how to do that and you start developing your own style, though, you might sometimes it's so hard to copy someone else's style that you develop your own around it. Sometimes you think, oh wow, that looks really cool. The way they do their hair is so cool, but at the same time, maybe you think their eyes look weird, so you start making your own eyes, or you that was because another inspiration for me was Kingdom Hearts. I did a lot of fan art for Kingdom Hearts when I was first learning how to draw, and so it was that, and it was TWEWY and Soul Eater. I learned a lot from trying to draw Soul Eater as well. Let's see. That's some good advice. I have plenty of references, but I use them for posing. Maybe I should go back and look at the details I want to figure out. Yeah, like, that's kind of a good way to go about it. And, you know, you never want to be somebody who you know, just, like, copies somebody else's style. But honestly, I find that that's kind of a hard thing to do anyway, is copy someone else's style. If you learn to draw by copying other styles and then figuring out what you want to do differently, that's a little bit easier than just copy pasting. I think I did those lines backwards. This needs to be in front, and the other one needs to be behind it. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure things out a little bit as I'm going along. Okay. And then exactly, that's why I hate it when people get mad about art style theft. Like, bro, that's just called being an artist. Yeah, that's so true. Also that, yeah. It's funny to me when I start seeing a lot of, like, gatekeeping like that. it's like, how do you think people get started? They get inspired by things that they like, and then they start trying to do something that they like. And it usually starts by not necessarily copying. Sometimes that is how you start. You start by like tracing other drawings and everything, and you don't post it as your own, obviously. If you're tracing something, it's not your work. But it's a fine way to practice. It's like using fan fiction to practice writing. I'm a professional writer. I get paid to write people's stories for them. I would not have got that job if I hadn't spent years writing fan fiction for the properties that I like, because it taught me how to write. Even if it wasn't my original stories at first, it was teaching me the skills. It was teaching me how to write dialogue. It was teaching me how to set a scene. It was teaching me all those sort of things that you learn by practicing. And then, of course, I'm not trying to make a career out of writing fan fiction. In fact, I kind of want to separate my real self and my original works from the fan fictions that I've made in the past, or that I'm still making. That's why I don't usually advertise them like on my server. I don't post links to my fanfics. It's just because I'm trying to kind of distance myself a little bit from what I used to write. But at the same time, when people start slamming fanfic writers and being like, that's not real writing, you're not a real writer if you just write fan fiction, I'm like, yeah, they are. Anybody who writes anything is a writer. Like, stop gatekeeping creativity. It's creativity. So the same goes for art. The same goes for trying to learn how to draw. If you're starting out by thinking that something looks cool and then trying to figure out how they did it, you're going to learn how to make your own stuff. I don't know. Sorry for the long, impassioned rant, but I'm just really sick of gatekeepers in anything, really. I want to put a little bit of fur detail here to show that it is the like back of this thing. I don't know how to tell people this, but just because you don't like someone, it doesn't mean they are not the thing they are. Yeah, that's pretty true. Oh, because of the writer thing. Okay, I get it. Are you going to color Cupcake's hooves white? I was indeed planning on it. That's why I have, for the references that I picked for all of these characters, I made sure to include at least one that was like a full-length thing, so that I could make sure to get all of the little details right, even if it's in my style. So I am planning on, plus also it just balances her out, because she's got the white, the white uniform. I like the details with this piece. I always saw Dulcians as having paws than claws, but your art style makes them look more natural to me. Yeah, that's fair. For me, I did see them as kind of claw-like things, but maybe that's just me. Let's see here. That's not a good one. In this one, they do look more like paws. But like, in this piece that I have for Cupcake, they kind of look more like claws to me. But that might just be my interpretation. But yes, I do intend to make the hooves white. It just balances her out. Okay, where am I? So now I'm drawing the bottom part of the hooves thing. And I wanted to make sure, this is one thing I have to get the angling right, because I'm not usually used to drawing the bottom of somebody's boot or foot or cloven hooves. And this is good practice. This is good practice for doing that. It's because I'm used to drawing shoes from like the side or the top angle more than that. And I need to get better about drawing other things. So drawing the bottom of the hooves is going to be a challenge, but a fun one, I think. So I'm going to start by just drawing the basic shape of the outside, if I can get this line right. And then I'm just going to kind of add something like that. I feel like that's a lot easier than trying to draw a boot from this angle. That's just, it's going to be easier for me. And then I think what I'll do is just kind of do a little bit of eraser here and kind of do a little bit of hitting here so that that just gives the illusion of the two hooves up above. I don't want to be too detailed. Definitely looks easier. Yeah, because with the, if I was drawing a shoe, this would be the heel, and then I would have to go in and add, you know, like little more details of the sole, and it's just, it's very difficult. I am not good at drawing shoes from the bottom. And I think that's pretty good. I don't want to be too detailed on this piece that's a little farther away. So now for the second leg, which is tucked a little bit behind this one, which that means that it's also going to give me a little bit of trouble in angling because I'm trying to get it all right. I think that's okay. But then on this one, I'm probably going to move this a little bit up and not do it quite so down below where it was. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of fur there and a hoof. I think that turned out pretty well. And once I get some shading and coloring done in that, it's probably going to be pretty cool. I need to make sure that it fits. So with Danny and his braid, the hair is too close. So I might try to fix this a little bit. Because I definitely don't want, I want the picture to just look right. And a part of that for me is just making sure that these little things just aren't too close to each other. So I'll probably move this and then I'll redraw that bit of tail over it. I should have done this earlier. I should have blocked it out a little bit better. If I had planned it, because if I'd planned it a little bit better from the start, then I wouldn't have to do this. But this is how we learn. Okay, yeah. I think that looks a little better. And maybe when I do his braid, I'll move it a little bit too. But that is for a different time because I'm not planning on drawing Danny today. Today I'm only planning on drawing Cupcake and Cowboy. I think I'll do her flat colors now, but I'm probably not going to do any of the shading yet. I'm going to wait until I have all the pictures ready before I start doing shading. So now I can delete her off of the sketch. It's very relaxing seeing your art process. Thank you. It's very relaxing to do my art process, even though I know that I don't necessarily do things in the same order that other people might do, or the same, if my process is not the same as a lot of other people's processes. And sometimes it makes me feel like I'm doing things wrong. And it's definitely always a learning process. I'm always trying to figure out the better, more efficient ways of doing things and all that sort of thing. But for what it is, I think that I'm pretty okay at this. I am going to put a color behind her so that I can make sure to fill in all the little pieces and, yeah, see, and remove all of the wrong pieces. No such thing as doing it wrong. And see, that's what I try to tell myself. I try to tell myself, well, you know, just because you're maybe doing it differently doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it wrong. At the same time, I do try to learn from like art videos and from other people's processes as well, because sometimes I might not be doing things wrong, but sometimes I'm definitely doing things harder. And it's like, you work harder, not smarter. I mean, you work smarter, not harder. I got it backwards. So that's one thing that I'm definitely still trying to learn from other people and try new things, new processes. In fact, I am going to be trying some new processes for this. I'm on the wrong brush. I'm going to be trying some new processes while I'm working on this art piece, because the way that I shade my art has always been, it's always been so time consuming and it takes so much work. And then the other day I was watching a video and they were like, if you're doing it like this, you're not doing it wrong, but you're doing it hard. So maybe if you want, you can try to do it this other way, and that might make it easier. So I am going to start trying to do it this other way, and I'm going to use this piece as practice to try to see if I can figure that out and get it right. But that's for a different time, the shading, because I'm not planning on doing any of the shading in this video, I think. In this video, I'm just doing the line art and flat colors. Which, again, I'm probably doing it hard. There's probably an easier way to do this. But at the moment, this is what I got. It's just a matter of carefully going through, making sure that I don't have white where I don't want white, and I do have white where I do. It's the weirdest thing when you find out there was an easier way to do something you've been struggling with the whole time. It really is. It's just like, you know, I've spent years doing it this way, and then I'll see a video and they'll have something that looks even better, and they did it in 5 minutes when it takes me so long to do everything. Paint bucket tool, my beloved. Yep. It wouldn't be the paint bucket tool if it didn't cause some kind of problem. I think I have my expansion on too wide, so that's one thing. Gotta make sure I get this collar done pretty well. I wanted to make sure to include like the popped collars and everything, but for her it was difficult to find a way to do the popped collar without taking too much off of like her face, even though her face is just a face with no nose or mouth or whatever. I kind of wanted to make sure that you could see that she didn't have a mouth and a nose, so I wanted to make sure that she kept the popped collar, but that it didn't overtake too much of her face. And at this angle, that was a little bit tricky, but I think I did it pretty well. I think I did it okay. Alright, and so now, the next one I'm going to do, of course, is all the black, which I start with a darker gray base color, and then I just do most of the blackness in shading. So I'll put that blue here, and fill it up first. And then I will go through and fix everything. Yeah, I like it. Thanks. Honestly, I love the contrast in the way that she is colored. That's one thing, ever since I first saw your art, way back in the day when I saw some fan art you did, your use of color has just always impressed me. That makes sense. It's easy for me to color with black in the comic because the line art isn't black. That's true. That's a good point. For me, I am trying to make it so that my line art will kind of be different colors than black, but I start off with black and then I have a way of kind of changing a bit of its color sometimes here and there. But that's like one of the last steps that I do. So that's not going to be done for a very long time. What was I saying? But yeah, oh yeah, your use of color. You just have such a great way of picking colors and making them so striking. It's just really pretty. I love the way you use color. It's probably like my favorite thing about your art because your style is very cute. I love your art style, and your line work is always it's pretty, it's crisp, it's nice. But oh man, the way you do the colors is just it always gets me. And that's one thing that I'm hoping to be able to translate into my art style is all the color. Thank you. You're welcome. Because I've tried it before. There was one time I saw your fan art of a couple of characters, and I really liked the new clothes that you gave them. So then I tried to do fan art of your versions of those characters in my style, and it didn't work out too well because I wasn't able to color it the way that you color things. And so I'm hoping that I've learned a lot since then. I think that was what, like 3 or 4 years ago, honestly. Time flies so fast. But I'm hoping to be able to do some justice to the colors that you use because they're so vibrant. And the palettes are just very simple. I thought they looked nice. Thank you. I'm glad that you did think they looked nice. Yeah. Whereas I feel like I'm pretty strong when it comes to drawing clothes. I am still not very strong when it comes to things like coloring and shading. Um, so that is one thing that's part of why I'm doing this is to practice and grow and learn so that I can start getting better at it. And I figure what better way to learn how to color than to try to uh, work on art done by somebody who I think is really good at it. You're so good at it. So then I just want to learn from you in a way. But yeah, so this is going to be a little boring for a while because it is literally just filling out tiny little things and making sure that I have the right colors everywhere they need to be. I am at the moment also just obsessed with Severance, that TV show. So that is in my mind constantly as I'm working on this, and that's distracting me is because I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking about Severance. uh, my sister and I, Kit Kat, we have watched season one 3.5 times in the past week. And when she gets home from work, we're probably going to finish out that half time. So we're going to have watched it 4 times in one week. And then season two, the first episode airs on Friday. And it is the only thing that we can talk about. It is the only thing we can think about is we just can't wait to watch more Severance. It's probably my new favorite show. It's so good. I've only heard the name. Tell me about it. So, it is this show, and there's a little bit of white there I need to erase. The premise is that there's this company that has this invention that makes it so that you can split your memories in a way. And so when you are at work, you do not remember who you are, you don't remember anything about your life, you don't remember anything except work. And then when you leave work, you don't remember anything that happened while you were at work. You only remember your real life, so to speak. You have all your childhood memories, you know your friends and family, that's your life, and they're completely separate. But the fun thing about it is that it's done so well, but it's really like creepy and suspenseful because the people who are stuck at work don't necessarily like that. They don't necessarily like that they wake up with no memories, no idea of who they are, nothing like that, and then their entire existence is spent working. And at 5 p.m., they get in the elevator to go home, and then they wake up immediately at 9 a.m. the next day, getting off the elevator back into work. their entire existence is just spent working, and it's so good. It's so good. But the thing is, they can't remember that they want to quit when they wake up on the elevator as their real selves. Their real selves are just going about their day, living their lives, not remembering anything from work. I don't want to give too much of the story away because it's so good. Adam Scott, he's the main character. I'm a big fan of his. I like a lot of his roles. Ben Stiller directs. I'm also a big Ben Stiller fan. Not to the point where I've like followed their entire lives or anything. I don't really know a whole lot about them as people. It's just one of those, for me, a lot of actors, I don't really know anything about their personal lives. It sounds really cool. Thank you. It is, I mean, not, why am I saying thank you for that? It is really cool. Oh, shit. I just realized I've been drawing some of the black on the white coloring for a while. I think just the tail. That's an easy fix. I always have to try to make sure that I'm checking what I'm drawing because Zoolander directed that series. I don't really know. I don't know anything about Zoolander. So that's one thing, is that when I'm like, I'm a big fan of so-and-so, I don't really necessarily know their entire body of work or all of their real life, anything they do in their personal life or anything like that. I usually only really know somebody from a few different things that I've seen. So with Ben Stiller, I've never seen Zoolander. I don't know anything really about it. With Ben Stiller, I like him in... My favorite thing with him is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I love that movie so much. It's a really good movie. And it also has Adam Scott in it. I do all my colors on the same layer, but my art program isn't super messy with the paint bucket tool. Yep. This art program that I'm using right now, Medibang, it's free, and I like it. And I know how to use it, and it's just what I'm used to. But at the same time, it does not have the most comprehensive set of abilities. An early role of Ben Stiller, a male model who's brainwashed into being an assassin. See, I didn't know that. That actually does sound kind of interesting to me. Maybe I'll give it a shot sometime. I mainly know Ben Stiller, though, from The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, which is one of my favorite films. I know him from Megamind, another one of my favorites. I feel like there's another thing of his that I know specifically him in, but I don't remember what it is right now. Oh, Night at the Museum. One of my sisters is a huge fan of Night at the Museum. It's where the meme, is this an X for ants, comes from. I have never seen that meme. That is not familiar to me, actually. So I guess I'm just really out of the Zoolander fandom. I don't know that meme. Yeah, I don't know it either. But yeah, whereas Adam Scott, he's in Secret Life of Walter Mitty as well. He's really good in that role. He's in The Good Place, which is one of my favorite shows. He's in Parks and Recreation, another one of my favorite shows. Yeah, I like Adam Scott pretty well. And so then he is really good in Severance. It might be my favorite role of his so far that I've seen. I like I said, I don't really watch everything from an actor most of the time, so it's just what few of his stuff I've seen. I haven't seen Night at the Museum in years, but man, I have fond memories for it. Yeah. I love The Good Place. Yeah, me too. The Good Place. It's such a good show. I love that show. Do whatever. Have you seen Man on the Inside? Another one of Ted Danson's shows that he's in. Because I don't necessarily have theories as much as I just have like fun things that I like to think about in terms of how much it might be able to be a continuation of The Good Place, even though it's very much not. Those movies were some of Robin Williams' final works. That's true, they were. I didn't care for Night at the Museum 2, to be honest. I thought that it was just kind of a cash grab spin-off, a cash grab sequel. But The First Night at the Museum, like I said, it's one of my youngest sister's favorite movies. I haven't seen it in a little while, but she used to watch it a lot, and so I have fond memories of that too, just because I remember liking it. Obviously, it's not a perfect movie, but it's fun. It's cute. Talking about Man on the Inside. I only watched the first episode because I was planning on watching it with my dad, but he got bored. That is fair. It is. When I went into it, I expected it to be a little more of a comedy, like The Good Place, and then it kind of wasn't. It's still funny. It's got comedic elements to it, but it's not a comedy per se. And so I was surprised to find it a little more. What's the word? A little less like funny and a little more meaningful, but I really liked it. I thought that the meaning that it had was really good. In my opinion, it is so far Mike Schur's best as far as like storytelling and just general and for Ted Danson too. I feel like Man on the Inside was probably a bit of a victory lap for them. It was just really good. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm gonna try to find a good green for her emerald eyes just for the base of it. I want to give it that pop of cool color because the entire piece is going to be mostly like pinks and reds and that sort of thing. I'll have to finish it then. Yeah, you should. It's a really good show. Alright, that's pretty simple, but I like it. I think that's going good for her here. Alright, so now I'm going to start working on Cowboy. I am probably going to merge these flat colors. I don't need them all to be on different layers now that they're in place, because I'll do my shading a little bit differently. Have you seen Carol and the End of the World? It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I have not seen that. I don't think I've really heard of that one actually. I'll have to look into that. Sorry, I'm coughing up a whole lot. Let's see. Alright, Cowboy, he's gonna be fun. I'm not really sure about the posing that I gave him. It's good for the drawing, but at the same time, I feel like I didn't give it a whole lot of detail, so it's gonna be kind of difficult for me to piece this all together. Let's see. I'm going to start by putting that on some transparency so that I don't accidentally start drawing on the layer itself. Maybe I'll start with this arm here, because that's going to take a little bit for me. Starting to do different, more advanced kinds of posing, so it's going to take a little while for me to get it right. Slice of Life Apocalypse series. Now that sounds interesting. I feel like that's not usually two words that you hear in the same sentence like that. I will definitely have to look into this if you like it all that much, because I know that we have very similar tastes in a lot of the things that we watch. Oh, speaking of that, I have not yet. I know that I said I was going to watch Craig of the Creek today, the new episodes. I'm probably going to try to do that after I'm done here with art. I don't know how I'm feeling about this. Like I said, since I'm trying to do new kinds of angles and poses and more dynamic movements and that sort of thing, it's just not always going to work out quite well. But then again, this character is smaller than the others. He is going to be more in the background, so if it's not quite perfect, that's going to be okay. I'm doing the base of the glove, and then this part of it is going to be clutching at his hat. I wear hats all the time. If I'm not wearing a hat, I don't feel like I should be outside. It just feels weird to me to exist in the world without a hat. And hats are very easy to lose because they would go flying off your head on windy days. And so I'm like, if it's got zero gravity, I almost considered having his hat be like floating off around the room like he lost it. But at the same time, I feel like Cowboy is the type who would work at making sure that he keeps his hat all the time. That's what I would do. I would not want to lose my hat even in the confined spaceship for even a minute. So I just feel like I'm giving him that bit of a character trait that he would not want to lose his hat. Let's see. It's really good. It's heartfelt and existential. It's an animated show, but the art style is a little off-putting to some people. I like it though. I don't like hating on shows for art styles. Yeah, that's fine. One of my favorite shows is, of course, The Amazing World of Gumball, which I know so many people who hate that show and cannot watch that show because they're like, the art bugs me. It messes up my eyes. And I'm like, you know what? You do you. That's fine. I get that. But I love it. So yeah, I'll probably give this show a watch through sometime. Carol and the End of the World. I'll try to remember that. Craig at the Creek is kid cringe in the best way. Huh. The characters are lovable and endearing. It really makes you wonder, was I ever like that? Well, I definitely was like that. Craig of the Creek, I love that show. It hasn't really made me cringe. I've never heard that. That's an interesting perspective. With Craig of the Creek though, it's so much of like what me and my siblings and all of our friends were like when we were younger. We were just all the time outside, exploring, making things up, playing pretend. It's very much just summertime as a kid, and I love it. It's one of my favorites. I was so angry when it was canceled prematurely. So now that they're finally releasing the last episodes, it's very good for me. I'm very glad to hear it. They did an Evangelion reference in one of the Craig episodes, and I think I'll love it forever for that. I've never seen Evangelion. I've heard about it, but I've never watched it. As much as I love hats, I'm really bad at drawing them, so I might have to just leave it at this and hope that that is good enough and that the coloring will make it clear that it's his cowboy hat. I wear hats all the time, but that doesn't mean I know how to draw them. So now I'm going to get into his hair, which is a lot easier for me. Okay. Maybe I'll start by doing his ear, just so that I have a reference for where to put it, and make sure that it's there. That works. And then with Cowboy's hair, I also wanted to make it seem a bit weightless, and like it's not really behaving the way that it's supposed to. I mean, the series captures the nostalgic embarrassment of being a kid. Every character is 100% into being who they are with no shame. That's what I mean by kid cringe. Yeah, okay. I guess maybe I'm not usually embarrassed about that element of my own childhood, so I just didn't realize it was embarrassing for other people. But that makes sense. I don't want that piece to cover his eye. I only watched it recently, and I don't think it's necessary to watch to get the reference, but the way they did the homage was so thoughtful and fitting that I think knowing what they were going for probably is, once it gets said. 1 out of 2. While I wait for that to finish typing, talking about the hair here, that was one thing I did with Cupcake before the stream really actually got going, was I wanted to make sure to capture the curliness of her hair, but also to give it a weightlessness, like it's floating all over the place because gravity is not holding it down. And I kind of want to do the same with Cowboys. I want to make sure to capture what his hair actually like looks like, the shape that it has, the pieces, the strands of it. But I also want to make it so that it looks just like it's not where it's supposed to be because gravity's off. So that's fun, I think. I think that looks pretty good. Kind of like floating around in front of his face there. Knowing what they were referencing made seeing it much more fulfilling. And that's fair. That's how it goes. The amount of times that things are referenced in cartoons or TV shows, and then I had not known about it or known what it was referencing until years later, and then I'm all of a sudden I'm rewatching something as a kid and that I saw as a kid, and I'm like, oh, they're making a reference to this thing. It does make it way more meaningful. Cowboy's cowlick hair part is inspired by Ironwood's cowlick. Wow, I didn't even recognize that. Like, I hadn't realized that. I mean, that is really cool. I think that's a good enough mouth. Kind of want to kind of give this nose a little more shape here. And then maybe I kind of want to move the mouth a little bit. Maybe that's exactly where it started. I don't know. Now to do his eyes, which I like doing eyes. Eyes are pretty fun for me most of the time. But this character is pretty small in this scene, so I'm not sure if I'll get a whole lot of detail in these things like I usually try to do. This was another one that I wanted to make sure to capture his expression, even though it's so far away in the picture. I want to make him look like he's really focused, like he's just trying to get to this thing to turn the gravity back on. Can I ask why Milkshake and Cowboy are your favorites? I'm very interested in finding out why. It's kind of a cheap cop out for me to say the vibes, but really that's kind of what it is. I just really like the way they interact with each other. I like that they've got sort of like this kind of married couple vibe going on, but at the same time they're not really romantic yet or anything. Not saying yet as in I expect it or that I think that's what they're gonna go for, but just they're not really romantic at the moment, I should say. But at the same time, there's so much energy there, there's so much chemistry there that you could easily see them getting romantic in the future. And I really like their dynamic. They care about each other so much, and they're always trying to help each other. And plus, like, Milkshake especially, she's such a good mom, and I love it about her. Like, a lot of times, I don't want to say you don't see very many good moms in media, because that's not necessarily true. You do see a lot of good moms in media, but at the same time, every new one is just so fun and so nice to see that I really just like, I like the way that she works so hard to take care of Butterscotch, and she would do anything. She'd like move heaven and earth for her kid, and I just really like that. Cowboy Milkshake OTP for the win. Yeah, that's true. But and then with Cowboy, he is quickly becoming, in my opinion, he's quickly becoming like a father figure to Danny. And for me, for the way that I have interpreted the series so far, Danny and Cupcake read so much as like found siblings to me that I can imagine Cowboy and Milkshake just like adopting Danny and bringing him into the fold, and then he also, Cowboy, becomes like a bit of a stepdad for Butterscotch. You guys can hear me stammering over all these names. I'm so bad at nouns of any sort, but and you know, I could be misreading things, or maybe my opinions will change as the series develops. I don't know. But for now, I just really like the dynamic between Cowboy and Milkshake, because it's like their parents just trying to figure out life when they didn't really necessarily, from what I've seen, they don't really have a support system of their own. They are each other's support system. So then with the kids that rely on them so much, they just, I really like them. I don't know. All that to say, it kind of just comes down to vibes. Danny's new shirt. I went to space and all I got was a found family. Yes. That's funny. My dad messes up the Dulcian names too. Them all being sweets trips people up. Yeah. That might be a part of it. Cowboy is easy because that's not a name, that's just what he is. And so it makes it easier for me to remember to call him Cowboy because that's just, he's a cowboy, so it's easy to remember that. What's his real name? I feel like they said his real name at some point. I don't remember though. And that's on me. I need to pull up the references for Cowboy because I don't remember how his collar is supposed to be drawn, how it fits. Okay, so his collar is like zipped up to his neck. Okay, that's cool. So these are the references that I picked for Cowboy so that I can remember to get all his details and coloring right. Eric, thank you. Yes, his name is Eric. Now to try to get this collar right at this angle. Let's see what I'm going for here. Okay. And then draw this in too. With him looking up the way he is, that's kind of gonna make it a little bit harder for me to get this right, I think. It was said out loud in the name reveal for him and the captain. Yeah. Like, I remember the scene, but it's just hard for me to remember all of the details, especially when it comes to names, just because I'm so bad at it that it's hard for me to remember anybody's names. So then with name reveals for these sort of things, that's difficult for me as well. Alright, so I've got his collar, I think, pretty okay. Oh yes, Eric, the name of a Disney prince that fell in love with someone of another species. Wait. Alright. I think in order to do this, I'm going to try to change the view. Nope, did the wrong way. And I'm probably going to end up doing this for Butterscotch as well. It'll just be easier for me to draw it in kind of a more natural angle. Yeah, see, I'm already feeling a little bit stronger about this. Okay. So I might have to redo his collar now that I'm in the right angle. Make it a little bigger. Add a little bit of detail here. I know I'm becoming boring in terms of not talking very much. I think that looks a little better. Now to try to do his chest. This is where it's going to be tricky for me, doing this new posing. That's not good. We just need to give you more stuff to respond to. I feel like I don't like the proportions. This is going to be harder for me to fix if I don't like the way that it's all just formed. So maybe I'll just try to fix this up a little bit. Fix his posing here. And since I don't have to worry about his head anymore, I can just fit the rest of this around him. That's a little better, I think. Yeah, that's a little better. In fact, I'm going to erase his head so that it'll stop distracting me. I'm still just not really quite sure if I did this first arm correctly, but I think it's good enough. I'm really excited to go more into Cowboy's past in future chapters. I kept it under wraps throughout season 1 because I needed it to be a big reveal, but it means we don't get to know a lot until later. Yeah, I'm also excited to learn more about him and his past. Like, you've done a good job, I think, of giving us enough details to get us interested without giving too much away. I'm going to put that there so that I have a place for his belt. I kind of want it to be like he's really stretching his torso out. And then his arm is coming out over here, so that's kind of where the chest should be. Not quite. I'll start up here, because I know where that line is supposed to be. Just a bit of a line here to give me a little bit of understanding of where things are supposed to fit. No, that my eraser brush was really big. This is not quite looking right. I think maybe it's this line behind his shoulder here. I need to fix this. Because it's supposed to be that he's stretching his arm out behind his head, but it's not quite where it needs to be. Like, I think I need his shoulder to be a little bit out here. So, okay. I think I know where my problem is now. There we go. I need his shoulder to just be a little bit over here. That's still not looking right. I don't need it to be too far down in here. It's still not looking perfect, but I don't need it to be perfect. And then his sleeve is going to be mostly black, so that'll make it easier to disguise where everything is going wrong here later. I'm not entirely sure. It just doesn't... I'm not entirely sure what the problem is. It just does not quite look the way it's supposed to. Maybe I need to make the chest go up a little bit higher now. For me, a part of my process is just trying to figure out a lot of things, where they're supposed to go, what's going wrong. And maybe trying to just do a little bit of fake lining here just to try to figure out where the proportions are supposed to be. Okay. Yeah, it still doesn't look quite what I'm going for, but it's, I hesitate to say it's good enough, but at the same time, maybe the collar might help a little bit if I do something better with the collar here. Where's the collar? Here we go. I think it'll probably look better once I put the other arm on. That's just going to make it kind of fit better. And then once I do things like shading and that sort of thing, that'll probably help a lot too. Alright, I'm going to move on and start doing this other arm. I wanted to make sure to, oh yeah, I need to put the rips in there. I wanted to make sure to get him at his most rugged, just because I like it. I like it when a character is kind of a bit more rugged, and they've been through some shit, you can tell. So yeah, just doing a little bit of ripped up shirt. I think maybe down here is a little better. Just to give a little bit of detail. And then for the other arm, I kept the bandage because I just really wanted to have that bandage there. Although it did kind of strike me as funny that he put the bandage on over his sleeve. I'm like, cowboy, why'd you do that? I love you for it, but it's just kind of a little funny. Do you have any fun headcanons for the characters so far? No need to preface, you don't need them to be canon. I just like hearing what vibes people get. That's fair. I probably annoy you with how much I'm like, oh yeah, I really like this thing. This is the headcanon that I have. Not that I'm expecting it. Don't think I'm expecting it. But it's just like, a part of me just really wants to make sure that it's clear that I don't expect artists to adhere to my headcanons. Just because the fandom that we met in, it's so easy for fandoms to just become entitled and demandy and needing to get their way all the time. He only has 2 good suits left. Don't judge him. Yeah, that's fair. Once she knows about it, Butterscotch will want to become a dentist. Oh, because you're headcanon. Okay. I was really confused for a second. You're saying that's one of your headcanons. Going the Wendell route from Rudolph. Let's see. I don't know if I have any headcanons yet for some of these characters. So far with a lot of your story, I've kind of just been letting myself experience it, as opposed to really having headcanons or coming up with ideas and all that sort of thing. Even with my ships, most of my ships for the series are like, oh man, they give these vibes. That's really nice. I really like that. I'm not sure about headcanons. I feel like I had one maybe that I was like, oh, this would be kind of fun, but I don't remember what it was. Yeah, given her curiosity of human mouths. I guess I could say that it counts as maybe a tiny little bit of a headcanon, how I was talking about earlier, how I feel like Cowboy is the type who would not let his hat be lost or taken away or anything. How even in this situation, he's prioritizing holding his hat on his head, even when he's trying to like turn the gravity back on. I guess that's a little bit of a headcanon, because it's born of my own struggles with my own hats. I have done that thing where I'm running down the street chasing a hat that the wind is taking away from me because I'm like, this is one of my favorite hats. I'm not willing to lose this one. So I kind of give that a little bit to Cowboy, I think. I'm not really sure about any other headcanons for these characters, though. I'm also not sure if I'm doing these hands any justice. Hands are, of course, stereotypically difficult to draw. So, I feel like this finger needs to be a little bigger now. And I'm giving a little bit of wrinkle around the wrist. But yeah, especially with the significance, the emotional significance that we already know Cowboy has with this particular hat, he definitely would not be willing to lose it. Even if it's just in his own safe spaceship. LGBTQ headcanons, maybe. I don't know why I added a Q on that automatically. I know I've already put their confirmed sexual identity somewhere, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, see, I don't really know. I haven't seen that. When I consume new media, I rarely ever go and try to seek out, like, you know, behind the scenes stuff, extra stuff like that. I'm not the type of person to usually start looking around for that sort of thing. So if you do have their confirmed sexual identity somewhere, I don't think I've seen it. I absolutely read Cowboy as bisexual. He is 100%, in my opinion. Just he's a bi king. He's just I think that he and the captain might have had something for a while. Like I feel like it's implied pretty explicitly in the webcomic, but I don't really want to speak to it because I might have misunderstood something, misinterpreted something. But I feel like he and the captain had a thing, and I feel like he and Butterscotch, and not Butterscotch, he and Milkshake, I feel like are going to have a thing. In my opinion, they probably will, I think. But then, I also know that, like, the hat came from somebody, and I think that she was a love interest. And so I feel like he probably had a girlfriend back home or something. Same here, unless shown in canon, I try not to headcanon a character's sexuality. Now, I mean, I do still headcanon sexualities, but I was saying that I don't usually seek out confirmations or behind the scenes information. That's just, I love that sort of thing can happen. I love that people can, you know, learn more about a character and get into a character's headspace and learn more about the behind the scenes stuff. I just don't really seek it out. But I definitely do headcanon a lot of things about characters. And usually I headcanon that they're queer in one way or another. Cowboy, in my opinion, is most definitely bi. But then I think that with Milkshake, I don't really know if I would necessarily headcanon her as, like, bi or pan or anything like that, but I also wouldn't really necessarily headcanon her as straight. For me, Milkshake just falls into the category of she gives some queer vibes, but she just happens to be into Cowboy right now, in my opinion. Some people in the Butterscotch server read some of the characters as trans. That has been fun to see, even if unintentional. Yeah, that's true. That's fair. I don't know if I have any other characters that I would necessarily read as trans in my head right now, but I definitely could see that. I kind of feel like his hand is a little too big, actually. That's something that I should have caught beforehand. After a series, I don't think about those details out of fear of attracting the wrong attention. Okay. What was it saying? The hand is too big. I need to fix this. But this program does not let me transform things very easily, so it's going to be a difficult fix to shrink it. I'm going to have to shrink it to the right size and then just redraw it, because it'll be very blurry if I do the wrong thing. I mean, after I shrink it. Yeah, that looks a bit better. Okay. With Cupcake, again, I don't really have any headcanons for her yet. For me, I kind of assume that every character is going to be queer until proven otherwise. And even then, sometimes I'm like, the writer didn't understand this character if they think this character is straight. Even if the character is with somebody of the opposite sex, usually I don't really think they're straight even then. I'm just like, oh yeah, they're bi for bi or something like that. So with Cupcake, I get the vibe that she's going to be with somebody in a character in season 2. I'm one of the beta readers, so I have access to the pages before they get published. So that means that I don't know which characters are already introduced to everyone else. So I'm not gonna say, but I get the vibe that she's gonna be with a season 2 character. That's a girl, and so I feel like Cupcake is probably some form of WLW, which I love. I love that about her. Butterscotch, she's too young, I think, to have. For me, she's too young for me to know yet what I think that she might be in the future. Some kids, they realize really early. Some kids do, and so I'm not trying to say you can't make a little girl like Butterscotch have an identity. No, of course not. You can make them have identities, but I just haven't really read anything in her yet. Kind of same with Danny. I think with Danny, once Danny and Butterscotch start interacting more with other people, then I'll probably start getting readings for them. But so far, and then of course, the captain. Do whatever already knows how rabid I am about the captain and Aster, a season 2 character. But these fingers are ugly. What the fuck? I definitely, with the captain, he is absolutely so queer. I love it. I'll start with the thumb. That's probably a little bit easier for me. I am rabid about the captain right now. Maybe if I do this, that'll make it easier to get this finger right. I really didn't want to have to redo the hand just because it's so difficult. And I'm not doing it right. This is not looking good. I probably, a lot of times with hands and fingers and everything, I think that they look really bad when I'm doing the line work, but I have to remember that they will look better once I do the shading and the coloring. So I'll probably just try to get this drawn and just believe in myself and believe in the process that it will look better once I have everything shaded correctly the way it's supposed to be. That'll probably do a lot of help. I have to remind myself of that sometimes. The line art of the hand is not the end result. Still, it just looks so ugly. God Captain, my favorite attempt at writing a villain as of late. It's really good. He's such a compelling villain. Damn hands. Yep, this hand is real atrocious. I'm just going to call it good enough for now, though. And then I'm going to move on, and maybe I'll be able to fix it, like, maybe I'll fix it during the coloring or something like that. Yeah, I can try to fix that at a different point. Maybe the thumb's not long enough. Maybe that's a problem. Did I put the thumb on a different... I did put the thumb on a different layer. But yeah, no, I really love the Captain. He is a great villain. He's a great character. He's funny. He's fun to hate. He's cool in the fun to hate sort of way. I think you really did a good job with the Captain. And I am so excited to learn more about what's going to happen to him in the future. The gloves were a little bit too thick on his arms here, I think. That's just a little bit better. Okay. I will let that be good enough for now. I'm not liking the way Cowboy is turning out, though. But then again, like I said, maybe it'll get better with shading. And I think actually now that I have this arm in place... Come down here and be with the rest of this arm. Now that I have this arm in place, I'm thinking that maybe I'm understanding a little bit of the problems with the chest, actually. I need to make this a little bit higher up. I need to make it travel higher. That looks a little better, I think. Yeah, little by little, it is starting to get better. And I'm going to do something with the collar. That is a big part of my process, is just... And that's why I say that I need to learn to work smarter and not harder, is because a big part of my process does involve just redoing the same things over and over again, because I've finally figured out what was going wrong last time. And that's not the most effective, efficient way to work. But he's looking better now. Okay, yeah. I can live with this. This is good. This is okay. So now to do these legs, which I'm not liking the legs the way that I have them. What's your favorite cowboy scene? I'm not sure. I think he's turning out good. Thank you. Let's see. My favorite cowboy scene might be, okay, it might be the one where Danny and Butterscotch are in trouble. Just a second. I need to stretch my legs a little bit and my wrists. I'm starting to cramp up a little bit. When Danny and Butterscotch are out in the jungle of that one planet trying to find Cowboy to help him hunt, and they start getting like chased down by this monster, and then Cowboy shows up out of nowhere and just like tackles the monster away from them and takes out the monster and saves them and everything. And then he's just like, hey, let's build a campfire and have some supper, kids, or something like that. I just think it's really cute, and it helps to establish him. Like I said, one of my favorite things about him is his dynamic with Danny and with Butterscotch. He's like becoming a dad to them, and that was just a really good scene, I think, where he and the way that Danny like looked at him like a hero. I loved it. That was so cute. All right. gonna try to get these proportions a little bit better before I even start trying to draw. Still not quite sure about them. They might be too big in general. That might look a little better. I also don't want to make him too short though. You know, actually, I think a part of it is that I don't have his waist right. But I have it in line with his chest. Maybe the legs are what's wrong. They don't look like they would match that body. Actually, I think I could fix this waist without making the chest too bad. Okay, where is his waist? There we go. It kind of needs to be more tilted the other way around, I think. Like he's really like contorting his body a bit. The legs are in a different angle from the waist. Yep, that's what I'm saying. So he needs to, because it's natural for people to like have their bodies twisted a little bit when they're like trying to reach for something and trying to catch something. So his waist just needs to be in a different position in order for it to match the legs. That already is looking a little bit better. Just like it could be the right angle now. Okay. I'm gonna give that a try. See if that helps. And with these legs, I didn't, when I was sketching it, I didn't necessarily bother to sketch out all the details of like where the knee should be, where all the wrinkles were supposed to be. I probably should have, but I figured I would just be able to get it pretty okay. It's not quite looking right though still. Sorry, my phone alarm is going off. It is already 4 p.m. This is taking me a lot longer than I had thought it would. I might just kind of have to go for it. I think I need to... Where's the chest? There we go. I think I definitely need to get rid of at least this little wrinkle here to make it look a little more natural. And I'm going to have to do something down here with the waist to fix this, because this is not quite turning out the way it's supposed to. The belt is black, so that's going to be easy to just hide in there. I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with that and just see if that's okay, if that works out. That's not quite looking out right. I'm usually pretty okay about drawing boots, but it usually takes me a little while to get the shape of it right first. That's not what I meant to click. Okay. This heel is not what it's supposed to be. I'll tell you what I can't draw are things like tennis shoes. I just can never ever figure out how to draw sneakers, tennis shoes, that sort of thing. I can draw boots pretty well most of the time, and that is like it. In your opinion, his pelvis looks a bit too far away from his waist. There's no need to run away and cry in the corner. Like I said, since I'm trying to do this to practice and to get better and everything, I'm always welcome to some constructive advice. Let's see. When I originally did the sketching for this, I used a program that lets you pose 3D models, and then you can use them for free with your work and everything, but the 3D models themselves are a little bit off. Like, they just don't look quite right. When it's free, you take what you can get, so I took what I could get, but so I did model him off a posed figure that I put in the right pose, but then I did so much editing and changing around and everything to try to make it look better that it's possible indeed that his pelvis is just completely missing. I'll probably be able to fix that with the second leg, though. Once I start fixing the second leg up a little better, I'm going to put it in a different position, make it a little bit different. That might help a little bit. I think for this leg, though, I'm going to keep it where it is. I think the leg that hasn't been drawn yet could be moved down a bit to line up with the waist and torso. Yep. I just dropped my pen. Yeah, no, I agree. Once I'm done with this first leg, I'll do the second leg differently, and hopefully that will fix the problem a bit to line up with the waist and fix the problem with his missing pelvis and that sort of thing. I'm also just not sure about the sizing and positioning of this boot. Maybe if I just zoom in a little bit and pay a little more attention to what I'm doing, I might be able to get this better. I think part of it is that it needs to be angled a little differently than what I'm used to drawing. Like, it needs to be different. This needs to be angled differently. This is why I simplify shoes so much. Yep. I think that I might have to do this from a different angle entirely. So I'm going to... Where are the pins? There we go. Right now I'm just going to draw a bit of a basic shoe shape. And then this is, like I was talking about, I'm not good at drawing shoes from below yet. So that's going to... Now we're going to do some experimenting. Figuring out proper placements and positionings and all that sort of thing. Which means, because I'm going to have to draw the soles. So right now I'm just doing basic blocking up to try to make sure that I get everything where I need it to be shape-wise before I even start trying to do lines. Okay. Move this down here. I'm going to start actually merging some of these layers because I'm sick of trying to figure out what layers I need where. I don't, since I'm done with all of those things, I don't need to keep them all separate from each other. That's the fake hand. Okay. Alright. Now to try to get some of this made. And I'm not going to be too worried about perfection because a lot of this, since the boots I believe are black, a lot of this is going to be hidden by shading anyway. So I'm not going to be too worried about making sure that it all looks very perfect and detailed and all that sort of thing. I'm just going to try to get the basic shape of it all down. Okay, I think that's okay. That didn't turn out quite right. It still doesn't look quite right. I think maybe I'm putting too much sole on here for the angle that I need it to be. I just need it to be a little thinner. My drawing pad is also not doing everything it's supposed to do at the moment. I got this drawing pad used 10 years ago, so it does not always do what I tell it to do, and that is not looking good. Yeah, the drawing pad is starting to protest being used so much. Now I think I need to fix this part and make this a little bit bigger on this side. Dealing with planned obsolescence in technology, my favorite. Yep. I'm not sure. It's still just not quite looking right. Maybe there's not supposed to be an angle on this at all. Maybe I just had to fix this angle and make it go up instead of down, but maybe for this I just should kind of make it kind of straighter, actually. Which means, actually, instead of doing that, I shouldn't have deleted that first bit of foot that I deleted. But whatever. That's too late now. Kind of just try to make it a little bit more side view oriented. But also he's kind of like pushing off of the thing below. So, ooh, maybe that's the problem, is I'm not doing the toes right. I also think this needs to be a little longer. Because he's supposed to be sort of pushing off of the wall to try to get some momentum so he can be where he needs to be. But that also just does not look. That looks even worse. Maybe this? Little by little, I think I'm slowly starting to get there. But it is taking a while. Yeah, point those toes like a ballerina. That is gonna look hideous. But it's all about getting a tiny bit by tiny bit. I also think that maybe I did this too round. I need it to be more of a side view. And I'm having a bit of a hard time getting there. I'm too used to drawing things at some kind of an angle that when I have to draw them at no angle and just from a complete side perspective, that gives me trouble. Okay, now the bottom part looks right, but now it's this top part that doesn't look right. I think also maybe a part of it is that the boot itself, the ends of this are not quite where they should be. Okay. Can I ask why you're not using references right now? I actually am. I had the layer temporarily hidden so that I could focus on the details. So like I said earlier, I have this website that lets me pose 3D models for free. So I start with that is I get the pose that I want. But the models themselves are a little bit wonky. Like their legs are all super short. So then I always have to stretch the image and transform the image of the model that I made so that I can get their proportions to look right. And then after I'm done, they're not on screen. Yeah. And then after I'm done getting the models, the 3D models where I want them to be, I make a rough sketch of everything. So I've already erased most of the rough sketch, but then I make the rough sketch of what I want on top of the models. And then after I'm done making the rough sketch, then I do the line art on top of that. So I did technically start off with a reference. I'm just so far into the production that I no longer have that reference on screen. And like I said, since I have to use free tools, that limits the quality of those tools. But I think this is looking okay now. I think I got this boot where I need it to be. At least for the captain, since for Cowboy, since he's a smaller background element. So now I'm just going to do this one last leg. So I'm going to erase the one that I just did so that it will stop distracting me and it won't be in my way. And now I can redo this leg and position it differently. And put it a little bit better of where it needs to be in order to make him look more like the way he's supposed to look. Okay. Delete the wrong boot. And now start with this leg. So I'm going to start by kind of starting here with the knee, but then I'm going to branch off a little bit and go up here. I'm going to let the lines here be pretty thick and bold because it's going to be shadowy. So that just gives a little bit of depth. That position looks a lot better. Yep, that's what it is. And then I'm going to start over here by finishing out this and just giving him a little bit of an ass here. And so now I can come up here and just connect these lines here. And this doesn't need to be super detailed because these are just like, you know, his pants and everything. And this is a smaller background element of the whole picture because he's not the focal character. Even though I would probably say that Cowboy and Milkshake are my favorites of the main cast, they are not the main cast. They're the main cast, but they are not the two main characters. The main characters are Butterscotch and the Human Boy. So of course they are going to get the most focus. They're the central piece of this. They're the central piece of this. All right, so let me see if that leg just looks generally okay. I can do detail work later. Which reminds me, I forgot to do leg detail on her. But you know what? They're smaller. They're farther away. That looks okay. All right, so now to do another one of these boots. What is still over here? There was something that was making it so that the transformation tool didn't want to. It's still doing that. What is... There must be some little piece of... My drawing pad just stopped working. Just a second. I have to unplug it and plug it back in. There we go. There's just a little bit of something over here It's making it so that I can't just transform this. That's a little better. Okay, whatever, that's good enough. I just have to try to get the shape of this a little better, so that I just have something a little bit that I can just follow off of. Okay. Are you using the same thickness of the brush for every part of line art? No. So I'm using a pen sharp tool, which automatically will do different line thickness depending on the pressure when you posted it and everything. But then I'm also changing the size of the line tool. So for some lines I'm doing like a 3, for some lines I'm doing a 4, and for some lines I'm doing like a 2 or like a 1.5. So all the lines are going to be different sizes. Let's see, for this part of the boot, I'm probably going to do a 2.5 just to see. That looks like it'll be okay. So I'm going to start, since this foot is pushing off a little bit farther, it's got to be a bit more of an angle here, I think. And then I'm going to go like, just put something like here. I want to make sure that these lines aren't too wonky, that he's not like bending his ankle in like impossible weird ways. I also wanted to, with these characters, when I was deciding how I was going to position them with 0 gravity, I wanted to make it so that Cowboy and Danny look more natural, like they're used to 0 gravity shenanigans, sort of. I wanted to make it look like they knew what they were doing. They can kind of be floating around where they need to be. They know how to maneuver in a 0 gravity environment. This is looking bad. But then I wanted, when I did the positioning for Milkshake, and I'll show the rough sketches for everyone else after I'm done here pretty soon. When I did the positioning for Milkshake, I made it so that she's kind of got her bearings. She like has figured out a little bit how she's supposed to float, but she doesn't really have a whole lot of like control. She doesn't really know how to make it so that she can manipulate where she goes and what she does. She's just sort of having to float around. And then I already talked about Cupcake. I made it so that with Cupcake she was just so elegant and refined. I like that. That makes a lot of sense since they're both more used to space travel. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then with Cupcake, I wanted her to just be effortlessly refined. Like, she doesn't even have to try. She's just automatically figuring out what... She's just... That's the way she is. She's automatically just exactly perfect. And then with Butterscotch herself, I wanted her to... Why didn't you do that? I wanted her to... be like upside down and kind of kicking a little bit, like she doesn't really know what to do in this situation. She's just kind of like floating, kind of like, you know, in WALL-E when Eve is flying so gracefully through space, but WALL-E is like floating around and a bit upside down, and he doesn't really know how to maneuver. I kind of wanted to do that a little bit with Butterscotch and give her just that like fun element. I think I need to make this foot a little bit bigger. I need mesh transform just to match the other boot a little bit better. So yeah, I wanted to position them all a little bit differently like that. Just to give them all a little bit more realism for themselves. And then it just turned out so fun, I think. I'm really having a lot of fun with this. I almost think I need more of an angle. Even if just subtly. That might be good. Because I need the lines to be relatively the same size, but at the same time, the toe is taking up so much more space than the heel is. So the front of the boot needs to be at a better angle than the back of the boot. I thought about having it be that Danny's guitar is like floating around in the background, but that would have just been a little bit too much work for me. I'm not very good at drawing things like musical instruments and that kind of advanced prop. And I would love to be able to practice and figure it out, but also at a certain point I do have other things that I need to work on. I can't spend too much time on this. And so I just wanted to make sure that I had enough time to fully devote to making the characters as just good as I could, so that they all are what I need them to look like, and they're done well. So I just decided I couldn't justify spending a whole lot of time trying to figure out how to draw a guitar. Plus, I didn't really know where in the composition I could put it without ruining the composition of where everyone else is going to be. At least Danny's guitar got a mention. Yeah. I did really want to put it in. I couldn't justify it. It would just take a little bit too much time, a little bit too much work. You prioritized what's important, and that's good. Yeah. And a lot of times that's kind of what I end up having to do. Um, I I watch a lot of, like behind the scenes videos of different medias that I like and everything. And reading, behind the scenes elements of things. And for a movie that I really liked as a kid growing up, I'm thinking this was looking pretty okay. I used to watch the movie Hoodwinked all the time. It's just that silly little cartoon movie about Red Riding Hood, and it's kind of done like a police procedural kind of thing. And I was reading about it, and the creator at one point was talking, and he was like, it got to a point where everything that we wanted to do, we couldn't. And everything that we wanted to fix, we couldn't. Wait, did I do something? Did I do that? Everything we wanted to fix, we couldn't. And it got to a point where they just had to be like, there are 5 things in this scene that we need to fix, but we only have time to fix one of those things. So it became a matter. I only had the shitty sequel. Oh, the sequel. No, the sequel sucked. It was so bad. Oh, I feel so sorry for you. You had Hoodwinked too? Oh my god, that is so sad. I'm sorry for the visceral reaction, but that hurt me. I feel so bad for you. But the creator of the first one, he was talking, and he was like, it became a matter of identifying the thing that was most important to fix and fixing that thing, and then just having to accept that the other 4 things were gonna stay shitty. And it was the thing about Hoodwinked is it was a completely independent project for most of its production. The legs really are not looking right for poor cowboy, but it's gonna have to do. Hoodwinked was produced almost completely independently. It was made by filmmakers who had never really made a film before. They hadn't really done a whole lot of animating even before. It was like they had this story to tell, and so they were like, well, let's figure out how to tell it. And they weren't experienced. They didn't have a whole lot of know-how. They didn't have the proper tools to use, and they just went for it anyway. And the quality of the writing in the first one is so good. I think I'm going to try to put a little bit of brim here behind his arm. It might be a little bit too long for what a real cowboy hat is like, but it's going to just be a nice little touch for him, I think. No, that looks stupid. That looks too long. And they made their own music for it, and they made their own characters. And at first it was voice acted mostly by unknown voice actors. But then when it got picked up by a studio, they replaced a lot of the voice actors with, like, they have Anne Hathaway in there and a few others. They have Patrick Warburton, but for him, he was actually one of the originals. He had got a hold of the script and he loved it. The writing in it was so good and so funny that Patrick Warburton, he just like signed up immediately. He was like, I need to be in this independent animated project. So that was pretty cool. I'm gonna start coloring him in the flat colors real quick. So I just need to remember. Oh yeah, I'm on my wrong view. Release, rotate, flip. So that's how he's gonna be. So I'm gonna start coloring. Yeah, the production behind Hoodwinked is fascinating for me. And it is such a well written movie. Just really good all around. And then the sequel is so bad. I cannot overstate how terrible the sequel is. Okay. Oh yeah, first I'm gonna do the whole put a color behind him so that I just make sure that I get everything colored in that I need to. But yeah, so I really tried to take a lot of advice from that. If you only have time to fix one thing, then fix the thing that's most important, and then accept that the other four will be shitty. I don't think he said the word shitty. I don't remember, but like that's the basic idea of it. So now we get into the boring parts of me just filling out all these tiny little colors to make sure that everything is good. I think I read one of your posts comparing the disparaging quality in two Hoodwinked movies with the same happening in Ruby. Why was that sequel made? They ruined some of the characters for it. Like Wolf in the first, his disguises were full outfits. In the sequel, it's just a beard and a mustache. Yeah, okay, yeah, I did make that post once comparing it because first off, I think it's just really funny. The same thing that happened to Hoodwinked, where it was like a really it was like a badly animated but good for the limited resources and knowledge of the creators. A badly animated but well written. Well, Ruby wasn't ever well written, but it had heart. The original Hoodwinked had so much heart and so much promise, and you could tell that the people who made it cared about it, and they were trying to do the best that they could, and they actually wanted to make a good series, a good property. And then later on, it became soulless. It became a cash grab. It was just checking the boxes of making sure that the characters did something and went somewhere and saw something and learned some piece of exposition that doesn't actually matter to the story, and just fart around on the screen for 6 volumes so that they can say that they've produced 100 episodes. And it just became such a drag, and nothing's good anymore, and they stopped. Everything that had been good about the show got stripped away one by one until eventually you were left with just nothing, just a memory of what it used to be, while the theme song was sitting there making fun of you because they were like, hey, we said goodbye to everything you loved. And it's like, yeah, I know, don't rub it in. With Hoodwinked 2, it was the studio that I believe had picked it up. So with the first one, they had this great idea, this fairy tale police procedural thing. It was funny. The writing was witty. It was nice. It was just creative and original and new. And then it was surprisingly successful. In the time in which it was made, it was not uncommon for independent animators or independent studios to try to throw their hat into the ring. They were making, a whole bunch of things. Like, even Disney was making shitty animated movies at that point. Into the Wild, like, come on, that was so terrible. But everyone was making an animated movie, and nobody expected Hoodwinked to actually turn out any good. Everyone was like, oh, yep, this is the new Dougal. This is the new Valiant, But then Hoodwinked was actually just so good, and it became really popular. And so then, since it was popular, the studio that had bought it was like, let's make a sequel. And so they got the original writer to come back and work on a script, but then they basically just like threw out the script that he made, and they only kept like a couple of little pieces of it. And they completely misunderstood the characters, as, you know, big studios are wont to do. They misunderstood the characters, so then they ruined the characters. They made a whole lot of different choices and just changed so many things. And they just focused on all the wrong sort of thing. I could spend hours talking about everything wrong with Hoodwinked 2. I'm not going to subject you all to that. But basically the answer is money. The studio wanted to make a sequel because they thought that it would be popular and make money. And then they did everything wrong and terrible as cheaply as possible because they wanted to save money. And the overall project was just bad. And it sucked because Hoodwinked was such a great film, even with all its shortcomings. And then they ruined it with the sequel. But let's see here. A recent rude post I read described the series as dragging on, but still moved lightning fast, like character backstories. We waited years for Cinders, and then it gets shoved all into one episode. And, you know, that's a fair criticism. My problem with Cinder's backstory is that none of it was what we were asking for, and a lot of it kind of contradicted a lot of the other stuff that we kind of knew about Cinder already. It was kind of just like the stuff they gave us didn't matter and wasn't what anyone wanted to know, and it excluded the stuff that we did want to know. They forgot to tell us the stuff that we'd been asking for years because they were too busy telling us stuff that nobody cared about. And the stuff that they did put in, like I said, it felt kind of contradictory. Like, Cinder has for the entire time had this sort of air of elegance about her and like a little bit of like pride and stuff. Like, she acts like she's better than a lot of people, and a lot of people thought, oh, maybe it's going to be like a reversal of Cinderella, where she's like, she is born of like high class and then she lost everything and all of that sort of thing. And then they were like, no, she worked in a hotel with somebody who adopted her from an orphanage in a different country and treated her like a slave. And it's like, that doesn't, first of all, really make any sense, but second of all, why did you do that? And third of all, who cares? And we were all like, what about how she got recruited by Salem? That's one thing that a lot of their villains, we don't ever know. With the exception of Emerald and Mercury, who were found by Cinder, we don't know how Salem, who has supposedly been in hiding for most of forever, how she finds these people or how they find her. So we were like, oh, maybe it's going to be like Rhodes is going to have been a secret Salem follower, and he's going to take Cinder back to Salem. Now, we don't get to find out why Cinder ended up finding Salem or why she follows Salem other than the vague idea of power, I guess. Let's see, a backstory is supposed to explain why a character is like that, or at least give you an idea. And yeah, and that's true, and that's fair. And so with Cinder, it was just, they were like, what if we made a whole bunch of vague Cinderella references without actually delving into the story behind Cinderella or the tropes or subverting anything or changing anything or fixing anything or doing anything with it interesting. They were just like, what if we just threw a whole bunch of gimmicks at the screen and told you to like it? And everyone was like, okay, I will. I like it. It was just like, and maybe I'm too close to this situation because Cinderella has always actually been a really important story to me. I don't know why. I just really like the story of Cinderella, and I feel like it gets a lot of like bad rap and everything. But the core concepts behind Cinderella are so easy to subvert and change and adapt and turn into something. And then they didn't do anything with Cinder. The only thing Cinderella about her is that she worked for a person who had 2 daughters and they didn't treat her right, and something to do with the mark on her back randomly looking like slippers. Like, literally, they stripped away everything important to Cinderella. And then they just shoved a whole bunch of gimmicks on there and thought that it would be good. Let's see. I've decided to do the drip feed method with backstories, so even though you don't know the whole thing with Cowboy and Captain, you can get a start on seeing how things might have happened. And you're doing a good job of that. So far we have seen little glimpses of it, little pieces of it. We're not... That's another thing that with Cinder, is that a lot of people were like, this is too little too late. They did not give us any inclination of what Cinder's backstory might have been until volume, 8? It was volume 8 that they finally started showing us stuff about Cinder. And then the stuff that they showed us was stuff that nobody had cared about, nobody was asking for, nobody wanted. And like I said, it had nothing to do with Cinderella other than just cheap gimmicks. It was just bad. And it was animated weird. Like, 10-year-old Cinder looks 16. And it just doesn't look right. They have a really hard time animating children in that series. Is something I've noticed. Little Ren looked ugly as fuck. I'm gonna be honest. Little Ren and Little Nora, they looked terrible. That show is not very good at animating children. And they should have done a drip feed method for Cinder instead of spending 7 seasons doing nothing at all and then wasting an entire episode of the show, which, they're always talking about, oh, well, we could have done a better show if we'd had more time. Volume 8 was like the longest volume they'd ever made. It was so long. And then they just didn't, do you put the color layer underneath the line art layer? Yes. So I have the line art layer here, and then I start doing the coloring. First off, I do it one layer at a time like this, but then I'm going to merge it all and do the, the shading afterwards. Baby Nora and Ren were adorable to me. And you know what? That's fair. Nobody has to agree with me. Nobody has to think the things that I think. I feel like the concept of a baby Ren and a baby Nora were really good, but I just don't think that they actually executed it very well. But then again, a lot of RWBY is just not executed very well. I think that there's a lot of RWBY that it's quite ugly to look at, actually. And once you get used to it, you start feeling better about it, but then you stop watching it for a couple of years, like I did. And then you go back and you're like, oh my god, I forgot how ugly this all is, actually. Well, let's see. Gotta bring up the cow tool principle. The Far Side had a strip where a cow shows off cow tools. There was no purpose to the tools, but people were able to come up with ideas on how to use them. That's a fun thing. If only we had more time. My brother in Christ, had 9 volumes. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. And the thing about RWBY that really frustrates me is that they were so bad at managing their time. First off, they did have 9 seasons. They did have over 100 episodes. I think they had like 118 episodes at the end of volume 8. I don't know. I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to volume 9. I was done with it by then. I had rage quit like 6 or 7 times, and at one point it had to stick. This in writing makes people interested in small details. Yeah, that's true. RWBY's weird lateral movement in animation is so baffling. It really is. Let's see, what was I saying? But yeah, they managed their time so terribly that whenever they're like, oh, if we had more time, then we could have done more things. No, you had more time. It's just that you wasted all the time you had. Like, for example, they're saying that in volume 8, they didn't have time to showcase Ironwood's semblance, even though it was apparently a crucial plot point that should have been actually canonized instead of Twitterized. But they said they just didn't have time to showcase Ironwood's semblance and explain Ironwood's semblance and why he basically turned into a villain with it. But then they decided that they did have time to have like a full 2-minute scene devoted to Nora just running around doing, like, grabbing a whole lot of food and putting a whole lot of food on a plate and balancing with the food while she's humming a little ditty and acting like a clown while she's trying to pretend that she's having a hard time balancing this entire giant plate of food. And then she tries to throw the plate of food at Whitley, but instead it's a really fat-phobic joke where the food all splashes onto this fat lady that's walking by, and she's gonna scream and run away and spill her wine on Whitley. And it was all fat-phobic, and it was stupid, and none of it was funny. And it was like a full 2 minutes. And so it's over and over and over again. They would do that. They would just decide to waste their time doing nothing. And then they would whine at the end and be like, well, of course we couldn't do anything important. We didn't have time to do anything important. And it's like, why did you waste your time doing unimportant things? If they had more time, they would have had more shitty things. That is so true. That is absolutely what I believe. They always complain, if we had more time, then we could have done better. I don't think they would have. I think that if they had more time, they would have wasted it like they wasted all the time they already had, doing pointless, meaningless things that weren't funny. They didn't contribute anything. A lot of times the decisions they made were actually harmful and bigoted, like I said with the fatphobic joke, or then things like a whole lot of the stuff that they do with like Penny and Ironwood is just straight up ableist. It is so ableist the way they treated those characters. And then they're gonna waste all their time being bigots, and then they're gonna whine and complain that they didn't have enough time to put story into their thing. Volume 8 was a 4.5-hour volume. They had 4.5 hours. It was the longest volume they ever had to date, and the entire volume takes the span of like 2 days. There were 2 in-universe days. Only 2 days. And they wasted the entire volume on ableist bullshit that they didn't need to do. And then they were like, I don't understand why people are complaining that we introduced the main antagonist finally, and the main character never even lays eyes on her. It's because she's the main character, and that's the main antagonist. And you're not even going to let them interact. You're not going to let Ruby meet Salem in this super important volume that you've been teasing and saying is going to be just as good as volume 3. And then Ruby doesn't even meet Salem. That's just not a thing. She doesn't interact with Salem at all. They have no fight. They don't do anything. Ruby only exists for 9%. She only has 9% of the screen time in volume 8. She's only involved in 3 fights. She only wins one of those fights. And when she wins that fight, her win is off screen. They don't even show the only fight that she wins. It's just like, come on. They wasted so much of their time being ableist and shitty that they didn't do anything else. And so it's really frustrating. Their problem is a management problem. I've been ranting about Ruby so much that I have not been reading these chats. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see here. Let's trade everything good about our bad animation in with technically more competent movement and worse textures and uglier models. Yes! They deleted all of the texture. They made it so that instead of skin and hair and clothes and leather and metal, all of the characters are made out of Play-Doh. And it's just so ugly. Let's see here. You're the producers. You can make more time. Yeah. I mean, to be fair about that, green lighting is a thing. Technically the producers could have decided to just make more time, but that time does have to come from somewhere. You have to pay the animators, you have to make all the models, you have to write the story, the scripts, and all that sort of thing. So technically I do think that maybe they just couldn't have more time. They couldn't just make time out of nothing. But the way they managed the time they had was so bad that I don't even want them to have more time. Going out of your way to focus on mean-spirited and unfunny gags and plot lines. Yep. They wasted so much time being mean and bigoted that they just ran out of time to put a story in there. Rooster Teeth. Are my offensive jokes no longer funny? No, it's the critics that are wrong. So true. I have no clue how you've lasted so long with this show, how you had strength to dissect the disaster that RT was, but I will forever appreciate your input in this fandom. Thank you. That is meaningful. In Volume 3, Ruby got into a fight with our most vocal villain at that point and watched him die. In Volume 8, she falls off a cliff. No, it's true. They made her into such a passive character. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't go anywhere. She doesn't fix anything. She doesn't try anything. It's really sad because Ruby was like my favorite character for such a long time. I love in Volume 3 when Torchwick is like, you don't care about, the world doesn't care about spirit. go ahead and die like every other hunter in history. And she's all that sort of thing. Like, you're not going to be able to stop me. You're not going to be able to stop them. I may be a betting man, but there are some bets even I know not to take. And if you can't beat them, join them, that sort of thing. And then she's like, no, I will stop them, and I will stop you. Bet on that. That's like one of my favorite scenes. And then in Volume 8, she just like sits around and she whines that no one's come to save her yet, and she's just all sad and everything, and she's like, I don't understand why nothing's going right. I don't understand why we're not getting saved by other people. I sent a message. I posted a YouTube video telling people to come save us. I don't know why they're not here yet. I know it's only been like 20 minutes, but I just don't even know. It's so frustrating because I loved her so much, and they just ruined her. They just took everything, and they did the same with all the characters. All the characters, everything that I loved about them, they just destroyed little by little, until by the end of Volume 8, like I said, I had already rage quit like 6 or 7 times, but I just kept on getting pulled back because I cared about the characters. I wanted them to be better. I wanted them to be interesting and well written. And it was so sad that they just destroyed everything. And then, of course, the mega fans will go out there and attack you for it, and they'll like be like, you're homophobic because you don't like Ruby. And I'm like, first of all, I'm queer. I am married to a queer woman. 2 of my sisters are queer. All of my friends are. I don't even know any straight people anymore. I don't know what you're talking about. And second of all, liking Ruby is not in the definition of being supportive or an ally. Criticizing Ruby is not included in the dictionary definition of homophobia. So please stop accusing me of being a sexist homophobe because I said that the straight men who write this show are doing bad by me and my community. But I'm sorry, I can rant about this for hours. Let's see. More chats. Literally my notes with the main female characters in Butterscotch. Do the opposite of Ruby. That is a really good note to have. Is do the opposite of Ruby. I fucking love Ruby's Volume 3 scene. I love characters who choose to fight for their happiness and freedom no matter what. Why'd they ruin that? My point exactly. Just everything about the character is just stripped away. Her hopefulness. And a lot of people are like, well, that's the point. The point is that she's lost her hope. Didn't you watch Volume 9? And first of all, no, I didn't. I didn't watch Volume 9. At that point, I didn't care enough to pirate it. And since Rooster Teeth is an openly homophobic company, I didn't want to give them any money by watching it legally. So I didn't watch Volume 9. But I read a lot about it from a lot of other people who saw it. And so, yeah, I do understand that at a certain point, the point was that Ruby was losing her hope. The point was that Ruby was struggling and fighting for finding her happiness. But they just executed it so poorly that it doesn't work. It doesn't act like that. It's not right. They just didn't do it well. They shit all over the paper, and then they wrote it into a script, and it was just terrible. Ruby, a perfect lesson in what not to do when writing a story. It truly is. And I don't want to be the kind of person who brags a lot. I'm sitting here just staring at Cowboy. I'm already done with him now. I don't but I don't want to be the kind of person who just brags about myself and my work and everything. But I am a professional writer. It's my career. It's not in television or anything like that. I don't write that, but I don't write scripts. I mean, I write scripts as a hobby, but I'm not good at it. I'm not a professional script writer or screenplay writer, but I am a professional writer. And there are some things that are just objectively done wrong in Ruby. And then if you dare to say so, you just get kind of attacked and, like I said, accused of being a homophobe or a sexist. And it's like, why are you bootlicking for this company so bad? They're openly homophobic. They named their company Rooster Teeth because they wanted to call it a homophobic, derogatory term, and Texas told them that they couldn't. So then they named themselves Rooster Teeth as code words for it. everything that had come out in 2019 about the company. They had like 6 scandals in 2019. And then they kept on having smaller scandals every couple of years after that. But then specifically in 2022, when the huge scandal happened, and it was like everything that you knew that was terrible about Rooster Teeth, you didn't even know. You only knew the tip of the iceberg. Once 2022 happened and we saw the whole fucking iceberg, it was like, no, this is just a horrible company, a horrible homophobic company, racist as fuck. Like, you can't watch Ruby, and I mean, you can. There are people who do, and it's really sad. But like, when you watch Ruby, even from the very first volume, it's evident that it's a really racist piece of media, and it's a sexist piece of media, and it's a homophobic piece of media. But people just didn't want to believe it. When I first saw Ruby, I thought that they were setting things up to be contradicted. Like, I saw in one of the earlier episodes, they have Lisa Lavender, she's reporting, and she's like, yeah, the peaceful White Fang rally was interrupted by a violent White Fang protest. And the not White Fang, Faunus Rights. The peaceful Faunus Rights rally was disrupted by a violent Faunus Rights rally. The violent Faunus Rights rally destroyed the peaceful one. And it's like, okay, so since that's so stupid and so obviously untrue, then this must be fake news. This must be, the Fox News of Remnant that's reporting, trying to make it seem like the people who care about rights and equality, they're the bad guys. That's what they're trying to make it seem. No, it turned out that that's just true. That's just what they wrote. And so over and over again, it was like that. They would say something, and I would think, oh, this is the part where we get to see how wrong people are, so that later on the main characters can contradict it and fix it and change it and be like, you're wrong. And then time would pass and I would realize that's not what was going on. They were just saying those things. They were just making them true. And by the time I realized that, and I should have realized a lot sooner, that the racism was just racism and that it wasn't being included to intentionally be contradicted and criticized, once I realized that it was just what they believed, then they started making all those posts. They were like, oh man, we've been educated. We learned our lesson. We just finished volume 5 and we know that it was like a lesson in racism, but we're getting better. We figured out what we did wrong. So now we're going to fix it. So then I was like, okay, you shouldn't have done any of that at all, but fine. I'll let you try to fix it. I'll let you see what you can do to fix it. And then they just didn't. And then they just continued to double down and be racist and ableist. They somehow got worse. After they said they would learn their lesson and they were going to fix it, they somehow just got worse in every metric. And it was like, I'm just ranting now. At a certain point, you just realize this is actually a pretty bad story, and the people who make it are equally bad. And every time they pretend that they're trying to change, every time they pretend that they're going to get better, they're just trying to make it so that they stop getting in trouble. They don't really care. They're not actually changing. They're just trying to change the narrative so that they can say that they got better. They can pretend. And my phone is going off telling me it's 5 p.m. And it was just like, at a certain point, you just have to give up. And that's what I did. And then a lot of people said that I was the bigot for giving up because it was such a progressive story. Okay, I'm done ranting about Ruby. Who are you going to work on in the next stream? Thank you. That is a very good topic change. I think next time I'm going to do Milkshake. I'm going to do her next. And since she's a bigger character, compared to the 2 smaller ones, I'm just going to probably do her. Especially because I don't want to spend another 4-hour stream ranting about things that aren't really actually going on in the stream. So I'm going to do Milkshake next week. Wednesday about 1:30 p.m. EST. So yeah, this has been really fun though. I've really enjoyed talking to you guys while I'm drawing and having you guys help me figure out some of the problems with perspective with Cowboy and everything. So yeah, I hope to see you guys soon. I'm also going to do more jewelry making on Monday at 1:30 EST. So if you wanted to tune in for that, that's good. I know I haven't posted the official video of that last one yet. It just took so long for YouTube to process it, so I just haven't finished it up yet. But yeah, so thanks for joining me on this. Let me save this before I accidentally lose everything. Thanks for joining me on this. I will see you guys at a later date. Goodbye.